Hello and welcome back to Deep Sleep Creep's YouTube channel. Today we are going to be listening to 3 more horror stories. If you enjoy these types of videos, please like, comment and subscribe. So get comfortable and let's begin. For some context, I'm a 24-year-old male, and one night I walked home alone, like I usually do, because my long shift at the gym was over. Plus, gas prices have been too high lately, and I wanted to save some money for college and drive less. I usually cut across a local park to get home because it's 5 minutes faster. I worked a doubler, so this time I didn't leave until midnight. This night was eerie, with a full moon casting and a natural glow over the surroundings. The air was still, and the silence felt calming. As I walked along the familiar path through the park, I noticed something strange. The sound of footsteps behind me. I turned around, expecting to see another late-night walker, but there was no one in sight. My heart raced, chalking it up to my imagination playing tricks on me in the darkness. I continued walking, trying to shake off the unease, but the footsteps persisted. Every time I stopped, they stopped. When I sped up, they matched my pace perfectly. I felt a shiver run down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was right behind me, imitating my every move. As panic began to creep in, I quickened my pace, determined to reach the park's exit. The footsteps kept echoing behind me, growing more and more pronounced with each step. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it just a prankster messing with me, or something more sinister? I reached the edge of the park and stepped onto the dimly lit sidewalk, hoping that the change in environment would put an end to the bizarre situation. But to my horror, the footsteps continued, transitioning seamlessly from the park's gravel path to the concrete walkway. My heart pounded in my chest as I cast furtive glances over my shoulder, catching only fleeting glimpses of shadows that seemed to move in tandem with me. I felt trapped, my usually short walk home now turning into a nightmare. My fingers fumbled for my phone, and I dialed a friend's number, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. They urged me to stay on the line, offering a lifeline of comfort as I hurried through the dark streets. With their reassurance, I managed to regain a sense of composure and started making my way toward a more populated area. As I neared a busy intersection, the footsteps finally ceased. Relief washed over me, and I leaned against a street lamp, trying to catch my breath. My friend's voice still echoed in my ear, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone on this creepy night. Looking back, I'm not sure what those echoing footsteps were, or why they chose to haunt my walk home that night. But one thing's for certain, I will never work a double shift again if it's this late at night. I've even chosen a different route despite it being 5 minutes longer. What did you guys think it was? Has anyone else experienced this before? Or is it just me? I've always enjoyed biking in the late hours of the night, when the city's pace slows and the streets are quiet. I wrapped myself in reflective gear and mounted on my favorite bicycle. I glided through the quiet streets, the rhythmic motion of cycling soothing my mind and numbing the stresses of the day. This particular night was no different as I rode through the quiet city. The glow of the city lights created an otherworldly tapestry, casting long, exaggerated shadows that danced across the pavement. The rhythmic hum of my wheels was the only sound that permeated the silence as I followed the usual routes. Each turn a well-practiced routine that allowed me to disconnect from the outside world. As I approached a dimly lit intersection, I heard some activity that caught my attention. 2 cars were carelessly parked, and they were engaged in a heated argument. Curiosity got the better of me, and I eased off the pedals, coasting closer to the noise. My eyes widened as I spotted a glint of metal in the hand of one of the figures. In the glowing light, it was hard to make out details, but the implication was crystal clear. My heart raced, and before I could fully comprehend the gravity of the situation, a deafening bang shattered the peacefulness of the night. My eardrums were ringing, as I then heard the squeal of tires that followed. Later, I heard the distant wail of a siren growing by the second. Fear and panic clawed at me. I wanted to pedal away and leave the scene behind. But I knew I couldn't do that to someone who's been shot. Whether or not they deserved it, it wasn't up for me to decide. I crouched behind a parked car, my heart pounding in my chest, watching the events unfold with a growing sense of unease. As if in a trance, I saw the figures scatter, vanishing into the shadows like wraiths. Left behind was the lifeless body of a man, which was tough to see. The distant wail of sirens grew closer, casting an eerie blue and red glow over the scene. I had to make a choice to stay and potentially put myself in danger, or run away so I don't become the next target. The sirens grew louder, the police inching closer to the scene. Taking a shaky breath, I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911, my voice quivering as I relayed the harrowing events I had just witnessed. As the sirens grew deafening, the figures dissolved into the darkness, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. The police arrived quickly as they conducted their investigation. I emerged from my hiding spot, my legs feeling like lead as I approached an officer, recounting the details I had shared with the dispatcher. The officer thanked me for my cooperation, advising me to stay nearby in case I was needed for further questioning. I nodded, my heart still racing as I watched the investigation unfold before me. The scene was finally cleared hours later. The officers departed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my bicycle resting by my side. You see dead bodies in movies, but you know that they are fake. It's a completely different experience when you see it in real life. I never thought seeing a dead body would shock me the way it did, but it did. The sun was slowly coming up, and I knew I needed to get home. From that night on, I took a break from riding my bike at night for a couple of months. After that, my girlfriend told me to keep biking, and that I should be safe and to not worry anymore. I don't know about that, but I did start biking once a week, hoping it was as quiet as it usually was. Nothing happened like that again, but still I have PTSD from seeing the dead body on the side. Every time I pass by it, I'm reminded of the horrible scene. I should get counseling, but I don't know. For some background, I'm a 21-year-old DoorDash delivery driver. I usually drive at night so that I can take my college courses during the day. Plus, I was stupid enough and bought a nice Honda Civic for myself, so I really wanted to drive more of it and get my money's worth at the same time. As a food delivery driver, my late-night shifts were a mix of eerie calm and hustle. I'd weave through empty streets and dimly lit neighborhoods, delivering food to hungry customers who preferred to eat at the comfort of their own homes. One night, however, my routine took me into a neighborhood I'd never visited before. The GPS guided me to a seemingly deserted residential area with houses that stood like silent sentinels in the darkness. No lights shone from the windows, and an unsettling stillness hung in the air. I parked my car and grabbed the delivery bag, my footsteps echoing in the quiet surroundings. I checked the address once more. 15 Pinehurst Lane. The house loomed ahead, a two-story structure with a faded facade that seemed to overall be plain spooky. I approached the porch, hearing the creaky stairs underneath my feet, hoping that I don't go through. As I knocked on the door, I expected a routine interaction, a simple exchange of food and tips, but the seconds stretched into minutes and there was no response. I knocked again, louder this time, my knuckles tapping against the wood. Just as I was about to call the customer's number, the door creaked open. The darkness within was nearly impenetrable, but I could make out the silhouette of a person standing there. "Delivery for Pinehurst Lane?" I said, my voice uncertain. The figure remained still, as if contemplating its next moves. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, they stepped into the faint glow of the porch light. I blinked, taken aback by what I saw. The person's appearance was ordinary enough, but their eyes held an unnatural gleam, like polished obsidian reflecting the night. A shiver ran down my spine, but I dismissed it as my imagination getting the best of me. I figured he was probably blind or had an eye problem, so I tried not to judge. Just seeing that at first freaked me out, but I kept my composure and said, "Here is your food, sir," I said, holding out the bag. The figure took a step forward, and a strange aroma wafted from the darkness. It was a mix of damp earth and something sweetly acrid. Their fingers, long and delicate, reached for the bag, and as their hand brushed mine, a coldness seeped into my skin. The hand retreated, clutching the bag close. Without a word, they turned and vanished back into the house, leaving the door slightly ajar. The air grew colder, and a sense of unease settled over me. I glanced around, wondering if I should just leave or stay for a tip. As I was about to do just that, a faint whisper reached my ears. My heart pounded, and I took a step back, my gaze fixed on the partially open door. Another sound followed, the gentle rustling of leaves, as if a breeze had swept through the house. With a growing sense of dread, I realized that the door was slowly swinging open, revealing the darkness within. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but my curiosity held me in place. I took a hesitant step forward, peering into the abyss. What I saw defied explanation. The interior of the house seemed to stretch and shift, the walls pulsating with an otherworldly rhythm. I noticed candles as I peered more into the living room from outside. Candles weren't the only thing that caught my attention, however. What I saw next, I still have nightmares about. I saw around 5 or 6 people, hooded in a long cloak, with what seems to be a bird mask on. They stood in a circle around the candles, staring at me. Panic clawed at my chest as I stumbled back, my heart racing. I heard what sounded like chanting. The melody grew louder, a haunting tune that burrowed into my mind. I finally snapped out of it and turned and ran. My adrenaline pulsed through my veins as I raced to my car. Back in my car, I sped away, leaving behind the freaky house. The image of that figure with the obsidian eyes and cloaked figures haunted my thoughts, and the memory of the shifting house sent chills down my spine. I couldn't explain what had happened that night, but I knew one thing: I would never return to that deserted neighborhood after dark.